figuring out how we could do something in Atlanta. You know, we had a really successful relaunch to our academy last year. You know, I have a school, the J. Morrison Academy, which we have are rebranding and reintroducing to the world in a few months as a private wealth building institute. And so in the academy, we had a great launch down here with Young Jeezy about a year ago. And so, you know, I've been to Atlanta quite a lot in doing business and collaborating and building relationships. And just love the energy here, the people here, the vibe. And we were always trying to figure out what we can do for the city and in the city, and you know, just what value we could bring. No matter where I go, whether like right now we're on the ground in Baltimore, we've been in Newark, we've been in Irvington, New Jersey, we've been in Pennsylvania, Brooklyn, different cities we go to. We always try to figure out how can we add value, like what can we do to help empower the people of the city and really provide some solutions for our people. So that's what we want to do here in Atlanta. Bless you. And for me, I guess the message that I've been driving home to everyone the last few weeks, especially being really intentional about within our community, because we talk about so much about real estate, and he and I in our private conversations talk about real estate and business and community and everything else. And where we've all the real estate experts that I've run across, like from every city, Cleveland, Detroit, everywhere, most of the guys who have been, so I can see all your faces. Most of the guys who have been really, really successful in the industry have went on into other businesses or, you know, tried other businesses. They're basically entrepreneurs, and real estate is just one of our businesses, and it's a vehicle for wealth building. And I was telling my students today that I even apologize to a degree, is that as I've been trying to find my voice, my calling, my purpose, and like what my message is for our people, you know, I took a shot at my book, Hip Hop to Homeowners, where we kind of broke down the ins and outs of how we build wealth in America. That's the subtitle, How We Build Wealth in America. Done a lot of high school engagements, even an inmate, the real estate prison program on Rikers Island, and just trying these different ways to really bridge the wealth gap has been my overall marching theme. So as I, you know, have experienced poverty, living below the poverty line for most of my adolescent and teenage life, and experienced, you know, just hardships in my home, drug abuse, you know, addictions, all types of stuff, right? And which led to me kind of getting pushed out into the streets, or at least mentally, that's where I collapsed and fell into the streets. I started hustling from the time I was 15, selling drugs, landed myself in jail, you know, dropped out of high school, then went back to an alternative program, graduated in an evening class of this like TOPS program they had in Jersey. And 4 months after I graduated high school, landed myself in prison, and you know, went to prison with the mindset not of being reformed or being corrected, but just the mindset of how could I get better at doing what I'm doing? How can I make more connects? So while I'm in jail in upstate New York, I'm talking to all the Colombian and Dominican guys trying to get a connect, and talking to the other guys trying to figure out how to take over my block better, and went home from jail, from upstate New York, from prison, with just a higher criminal education. And then took that forward into the streets some more, and caught another charge a year later in New Jersey, secret indictment, and then a drug trafficking charge. I bailed out from that while I was on parole in New York, and then caught another charge a couple months later for drug trafficking in Maryland, which I bailed out from. So I found myself at just turning 21 years old with a felony in New York that I've served time for and was on parole for, a felony in New Jersey I was out on bail for, and a felony in Maryland that I was also on bail for, while I was fighting those charges and going to parole every week. So through that whole course, went to prison in Maryland, came back home, and went right back to the streets after parole, and figuring that I would get that right. Did get the luck of the draw, and did learn about mortgages and real estate while I was on parole in New Jersey. I actually was the week that I had decided to go back to jail. So I was on a parole program called ISP, Intense Supervision Parole. And while on ISP, you had, you know, a 6 o'clock curfew, you had breathalyzer tests, urine tests, random pop-ups by your officer, men's group meetings, a journal you had to keep. Like, so it was a real intense parole situation, right? It wasn't relaxed at all. You had to have a job. So I had a telemarketing job, and then I would, you know, bounce around to a shoe store job. I'm just really BSing with these jobs, just staying on parole. And as I got kind of fed up with the whole parole environment and the restrictions, I told, you know, my friends, and I kind of had made up my mind that I was gonna go back to jail and finish my time, so I could come home from jail on no parole, right? No papers, we call it. So I made up my mind to do that kind of. I was like, you know what, man, I'll just go back. I'm tired of this. I can't take it. And so I told my mentor, who was my mentor in a church on Saturdays. We had mandatory men's group meetings where we would sit in a meeting like this, kind of a round table or whatever. And you know, we'd all just discuss our men's problems as black men and brown men in trouble, right, on parole. And so the pastor of the group, Antoine Thomas, said to me, look, before you decide to make that move, go back to jail, my wife works at a mortgage company, she's a processor. I want you to go apply for a job, just try it. And I was like, well, what do you do there? I have no idea what a mortgage is, or anything about real estate. And so, I put on some khakis and a button up, and I went and applied for the job. They accepted me as a loan officer, making commission, but it did get satisfied my job requirements. And then I was from being a hustler, I was a businessman. I understood that real estate made sense. I understood that there was money in real estate, but I just never knew how to get to it. Like, no one ever explained that part to me. And so while I took that mortgage company job, I learned so much about financing and how you can build credit and 100% financing, creative financing, and hard money. It really opened my eyes to a whole bunch of new doors. So if the story was perfect, I would have quit selling drugs right then, went to mortgages, and then became James Real Estate. But me being me, and committed to this image I created in my head when I was 17, that I was going to be this successful drug dealer, successful kingpin, I had it ingrained in my brain that, I wasn't satisfied, I wouldn't stop, and I wouldn't have made it if I didn't complete that image, or if I didn't conquer that goal. So when I got off parole, I went right back into the streets. Although I made money doing mortgages, I made $6,000 my first month because my aunt let me refinance her house. My grandmother let me refinance her house. So I was like, oh, $6,000, for pushing some papers, this ain't bad. And so I got that, it was money there, but then again, it was a certain lifestyle and level of maturity and a mentality that didn't shift. And so while, parole had passed now, and I'm done with my Maryland and my New York and my New Jersey parole, and so I'm back in the streets hustling again, and I had a really close call where a female who was my transporter from New Jersey to Maryland, she got arrested with 700 grams of coke and 5 pounds of weed, transporter for me. And so I was on my way to DC, because I was going to meet her in DC to pick up my money, and I got a call, hey Jay, the cops were behind me. And so anyway, they pulled her over, they illegally searched her car, but found all the drugs, and they locked her up, and then we had to bail her out. And during the weekend, while she had to sit in jail, she's crying and she's screaming her head off. And I'm just thinking like, man, this girl's gonna tell on me, and I'm gonna go away forever. And so she didn't, luckily, thankfully. And we bailed her out. She beat her case, actually threw the whole thing out because of the legal search. But I was like, man, I had everything perfect, right? I never touched any drugs. The drugs would go right from my connect to my house, where she would then do what she had to do, and then send it where I had to send it, pick up the money, bring it back. And so I thought I had this perfect turnkey drug operation. It's turnkey, it was like, anyway, so even in that, I saw where there was a vulnerability. And with my record, that means like, I'm done. And so you would think that, okay, I would shift back and try something different, but I didn't. Well, I did try something different. I stopped selling coke and started selling heroin. I figured that I had better luck, maybe on the boy side. So started doing that, selling drugs in Newark, New Jersey, and that got really intense. So I'm on like 18th and Springfield, 10th and Springfield, South Newark, New Jersey, which is a very heavy gang infested area, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm hustling with a guy, a king named Shafiq, who was like second in command for the Bloods, Sex, Money, Murder, clique of the Bloods. And so this is my partner. This is not me and Ramon, this is me and Shafiq. This is my partner. And so we're running this block. This is like in 2004. And we're running this block, and I'm just noticing the environment which I am in, the company I'm keeping, and I'm like, man, this is gonna end bad. Like, I know it's gonna end bad. And so one day, as I was just watching my operation from early in the morning, and I was just seeing like the guys, like pants sagging crazy, red flags sagging, it was just an environment of like, I was just in the trenches. I was really in the trenches. And that's not how I saw it when I was 17. That's not how I saw my picture go. I thought I was gonna be like the big guy in the big Benz with the, million gold chains and the pretty lady in the passenger seat. It was all gonna be like this fairy tale. And my after a 10-year run, my fairy tale of this picture was like closing in on me. And so when I tried to imagine like where I would be when I was 30, I could only imagine being dead or in jail. Like I literally could only imagine myself like laying on the ground, my head like bleeding, leaking, or me in a tan suit behind bars. That's the only thing I could imagine at 30. And so that day is where I said, all right, if I can't even picture my fairy tale, drug dealer, getaway, you've made it lifestyle, if I can't even picture the win for myself anymore, I'm done in this industry. I'm done with this. And so I quit that day. That day I went cold turkey, I threw all my phones away, gave the rest of the drugs I had away to my partner, and I was like, I'm done, I'm gonna actually try this real estate thing full time. And so I went back into doing mortgages, and I would, understanding financing, one great thing is that when I was on parole, I learned how to build credit. And so even all that time while I was hustling and selling drugs, I had secure credit cards and secure loans, and I was paying off all my bills. And so I went into leaving the streets with good credit. And from what I had learned, and also through the strategies that I learned in a mortgage company, I learned about financing and how to get 100% financing and grants and just creative ways to close loans. And so, I would go on, my mom was going through a foreclosure, and I paid off her tax lien by selling my vehicle, paid my mom's tax lien off. And then we would end up selling her house for a profit. She made $100,000 in 2 years in a hot market. That's what I wanted about appreciation, and that real estate really can give you extreme appreciation. I had no idea that you could just buy a house, live in it, and then 2 years later sell for 6 figures. Like that wasn't real in my world. And so because I helped my mom in that situation, she gave me some money, and that's the money that I spent to buy my first house, which she lived in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And I would get my first house, and a couple months later, through my good credit, be able to get my second house, a multifamily, which is what I teach, and then go on and on. So I built my real estate portfolio. As I was doing mortgages, then I saw all the money that realtors were making off the houses I was buying, and decided I could do what they do too, and got my real estate license, and started getting commissions on my own loans as an investor, but who also was a realtor, who also was a mortgage loan officer, and was making money 3 ways on every deal that I sold, bought, etc. And then doing that coming out of, so right now mind you, everybody that knew me, right, you guys know me as Jay, they know me as Maine, right? So everybody that knew me seen this dramatic shift in my life, and so there was a lot of support also. And then as I had more success, all the young guys that I was telling, like my first year of real estate, doing mortgages, I didn't make any money. I bought my houses, but I didn't make any money. So it didn't look like, from what our mentality says success looks like, I didn't look like it. Nor did I drive like it. I had a 93 Mercury Grand Marquis with a rag top roof and a driver door handle that was missing, and a shoestring holding my glove compartment together. Like I just told you, I did a campaign with Young Jeezy last year where he donated $1 million to my academy. But in that year, I was listening to Jeezy's Thug Motivation. I didn't even have a CD in my car. I would bring a portable DVD player and play Young Jeezy's CD on my way to the mortgage office, listening to Thug Motivation on a portable DVD player in my car, hustling. Up every morning, up late. And I took that same intensity, and as I seen, with me bringing that kind of energy into the real estate world, I seen they weren't used to that. They weren't used to that kind of hustle in that space. So that corporate environment, everybody was, okay, I do mortgages, I'm 9 and 5 and I'm done. You call me at 6, you're lucky, I'm about to have dinner with my family. I had an approach like, you can call me anytime, 24/7, 7 days a week, and I will answer, and I will take care of you. So anyway, I took that into that, and started having a lot of success as an investor, and then found out about wholesaling, creative financing, and flipping contracts and signing properties, and had a lot of success doing that, and would end up making my first $1 million, 3 years into the game, right? I was about 28, 27. And then the funny part about that is that I didn't even, and I'm gonna come to I'm not just telling you my story, I might actually come to a real educational point here. There's a purpose here. So then even in becoming a millionaire, I didn't even understand what becoming a millionaire was, because where I was from, you were a millionaire, you had $1 million cash. That's a millionaire. But I didn't understand anything about valuations of businesses and what your business is valued at, or you know what I'm saying? So I didn't understand assets, net worth. I didn't get net worth. In the street, your net worth is not like